Tonight, Summer Nats turns nasty. Police investigate a violent brawl involving dozens of patrons and security staff. Also tonight, more bad news for Boeing. US regulators ground more than 100 passenger planes after a mid-air blowout. A woman in her 90s is pulled from the rubble alive in Japan, a week after the New Year's Day earthquake. And an influx of unwanted pets leaves the RSPCA in Canberra bursting at the seams. Yuma, good evening and welcome to ABC News. I'm Jade Toomey. Police are investigating a brawl at the Summer Nats Festival involving patrons and some people wearing crowd safety vests. The incident happened yesterday afternoon and videos have since spread across social media. Organisers are stressing it's just one blip on an otherwise successful festival, which wrapped up today.
Not what you'd expect to hear from crowd control. It seemed to start with this punch. Some patrons threw cans and bottles and the crowd readied for a fight. Later on, a colleague joins the man in the red hat. Festival goers watch on, capturing the brawl from multiple angles. Moments later, another crowd safety officer kicks a man lying on the ground. Security at the festival were privately contracted and the ABC has contacted the company for comment. Police are yet to lay any charges. Festival organisers are also investigating.
It's our responsibility to make sure that everyone that comes here gets to go home safe and happy. When that doesn't happen, we also need to look at that really carefully too.
But they're keen to stress it was an isolated incident.
We had a plan that we'd worked out really carefully all year. Should something like that happen, we implemented it and resolved the issue.
The brawl threatened to overshadow the final day of Summer Nats. Queenslander Joe Bauer was named the festival's grand champion for his restoration of a 1968 Dodge Charger he brought out from Texas.
Yeah, unveiled here on Thursday. And to take out People's Choice and Grand Champion, man, it's just unbelievable for me.
And last night, crowd favourite Andrew Lynch took out the Burnout competition. A sight, sound and smell Canberrans can again look forward to this time next year. Patrick Bell, ABC News, Canberra.
US authorities have grounded more than 170 Boeing planes after a horrifying accident on an Alaska Airlines jet when part of an aircraft flew off during a flight. No one was injured in the emergency landing, but the American Transportation Board says it could have been tragic if more people had been seated next to the cabin panel that blew out. There are no Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft flying in Australia, but other foreign airlines are also inspecting their fleets.
This is why more than 170 planes have been grounded in the United States. A gaping hole in the aircraft as part of the fuselage is blown out of this Alaskan Airlines jet just after takeoff from Portland.
We need everyone to remain seated with their seat right now. Sit down.
The pilot recorded speaking to air traffic control.
Yes, we are emergency. We are depressurized. We do need to return back.
There was thankfully no one seated near the window.
Passengers were terrified.
It was a trip from hell. There was a kid in that row who his shirt was sucked off him and out of the plane, and his mother was holding on to him to make sure he didn't go with it.
I look up and the oxygen masks were hanging from the ceiling. And then I look to my left and there's this huge chunk, part of the airplane just like missing.
The plane was forced into an emergency landing, but remarkably, all 177 people on board survived, with no major injuries reported. But it could have been deadly, and the US regulator has ordered 171 of the Boeing 737 MAX 9s to be grounded and tested before they fly again.
One of the questions here for the investigators is going to be, was that a mechanical failure or was that some failure in maintenance?
Had the aircraft been at cruising altitude, maybe more passengers would have unbuckled their belt and then certainly would have been a risk. of loss of life with passengers potentially able to be sucked out of the aircraft.
It's a new blow for Boeing's MAX family of jets. The entire fleet was grounded in 2019 for 20 months after 2 air disasters of the MAX 8 model. In Indonesia, a Lion airplane crashed, killing 189 people. Then, an Ethiopian Airlines plane plunged into the ground minutes after takeoff. All 157 on board died. The latest incident could prove costly for Boeing, which has struggled under huge amounts of debt in recent years. Carrington Clark, ABC News, Washington.
Israel says it's destroyed a Hamas command centre in northern Gaza. Israeli Defence Forces say they're now focusing on central and southern parts of the Strip and have killed 3 Hamas militants in the city of Khan Yunis. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is in Jordan meeting with Middle Eastern leaders and says he's focused on preventing the conflict in Gaza from spreading. There have been more reports of clashes at the Israeli-Lebanon border. Militant group Hezbollah has fired rockets into Israel and the IDF says it struck a terrorist cell in retaliation. A string of stabbings across Melbourne has left several people badly hurt and 1 woman in hospital with life-threatening injuries. Police say 5 people were stabbed in 4 separate and random attacks within just 3 hours of each other.
A normal Saturday night turns into a random stabbing spree across Melbourne. In one incident, security footage captures the suspect in a green hoodie approaching a male bystander before stabbing him in the leg.
It's pretty terrifying, to think that something like a random attack like that as well, so close to home.
When I arrived this morning to open up, there was all this blood on the pavement.
Victoria Police labelling the events as extremely concerning.
On each occasion, the victims were minding their own business. They wouldn't have even known that they were about to be attacked.
Police say a 31-year-old Melton man allegedly stabbed 5 people in 4 separate locations across Melbourne, all within 3 hours of each other. One of the victims, a 31-year-old woman, sustained life-threatening injuries. She's in a serious but stable condition in hospital. The others suffered knife injuries to their legs and torsos. The attacker was finally caught by police in South Yarra just after 1 o'clock this morning. He was found with a bag of sharp weapons.
1:30 last night, I was woken up by a loud screaming noise from a male voice. Someone was screaming, "Stand still, put your hands by your side."
Police say it was concerning that the man used public transport to get to each location, but onboard CCTV was used to locate him. And although terrorism has been ruled out, his motive for the alleged offending is still unknown.
Our brothers with the PSOs as well, without the support that we had from them riding the train network, I guess this could potentially be resulting in me appealing for a manhunt.
The 31-year-old man was charged this afternoon with 14 separate assault-related charges and 1 charge of possessing a controlled weapon. He's been remanded in custody and will face court tomorrow. Courtney Withers, ABC News, Melbourne.
Canberra's RSPCA is under immense pressure with more than 350 animals currently in its care. That's more than double the number it would normally have at any given time. And the shelter's outdated infrastructure makes caring for this many animals a challenge.
This is what you might describe as a full house.
At the moment, we've got about 350 animals in our care.
That's twice the number of creatures the RSPCA generally cares for.
We definitely at capacity. We would simply not be able to house these animals all at the shelter.
Many are being taken home by volunteers. And while kitten season is one reason for the influx, it's not the only one.
This time round, we have a lot of additional babies, like this little one that I'm holding today. We have baby guinea pigs, we have baby ferrets, we have baby galahs. It's just babies everywhere.
Increased costs and irresponsible ownership, like not desexing pets, are also playing a part. There's additional pressure for vets as many of the animals coming in require complex surgeries.
We don't often know the cause, but they're coming in with injuries, broken legs, degloving injuries where they've got sort of soft tissue trauma.
And the shelter environment isn't ideal for keeping little ones healthy.
Just young animals, their immune systems aren't as strong.
New digs are on the way for the RSPCA in Pialago, but as that's still in pre-development stage, it could be some time before the shelter gets a new home.
We also have a lot of really bad weather that is impacting our shelter operations. Our shelter is not fit for purpose.
Even with a new shelter, it isn't the best place for puppies like these, who just want a forever home. Lottie Twyford, ABC News, Canberra.
A woman in her 90s has been found alive under rubble almost a week after a devastating earthquake struck Japan. It's a rare story of hope for the country. More than 120 people have been confirmed dead and 200 are still missing as the weather now makes it more difficult for rescuers.
They call it miraculous. 5 days after the earthquake hit central Japan, rescuers save a woman in her 90s. She was pulled alive from her collapsed home on the coast of Noto Peninsula. Hope has been fading for most, but there have been a number of people saved in recent days. In this one, another elderly woman is pulled to safety after a tricky operation. The workers called to her, assuring her she was now okay. Here in Wajima, the Japanese army has swung into action on the ground. These villages were cut off by landslides and their roads split after the magnitude 7.6 quake struck on New Year's Day. The area 300 kilometres northwest of Tokyo has been one of the hardest hit. 30 people were safely evacuated and more are waiting to leave. There are still around 200 people unaccounted for. This man explains the layout of his collapsed house to the search team. He believes his wife is trapped inside. Thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed. This family is picking through the rubble for anything they can salvage. Survivors are making do, but this peninsula community also copped a 2-metre high tsunami, and elderly residents fear they'll never get back to their own homes.
We'll have to stay at a shelter with everyone else for about 3 months or more, and then for 2 or 3 years we'll live in temporary accommodation. And I'm already over 80.
The weather isn't helping rescue and aid efforts. There's been heavy rain on and off and now hail and snow, prompting fears of further landslides, which will make it even harder to reach isolated communities. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Wajima.
The people of Bangladesh are voting in an election today that's been labelled a sham. The country's main opposition has boycotted the poll after a crackdown on protesters, and some politicians have disappeared. The government has been accused of a brutal campaign against dissenters, but Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is on the brink of a 4th term in office. South Asia correspondent Meghna Bali reports from Dhaka.
Bangladesh is off to the polls, but the result seems a foregone conclusion.
Our Prime Minister will be re-elected again. Even a storm can't stop her.
There's one notable thing missing: an opposition.
This is a one-sided election. You can't clap with one hand.
A boycott of the election by the government's main opposition all but guarantees another sweep to power for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. For decades, politics in the country has been dominated by rival dynasties, led by Prime Minister Hasina and former PM Khaleda Zia. Zia's currently on house arrest, fighting what she says are trumped-up corruption charges.
People don't accept authoritarian regimes. That's what exactly this government is.
The opposition BNP claims the government has taken control of the Electoral Commission, so it's decided to opt out. And so-called independent candidates have joined the fray.
If I win the seat, I will work for the welfare of the people.
But the opposition claims candidates like Ms Toomey are dummies intended to legitimise a one-party contest. And it doesn't help that the independent is still a local member of the ruling party.
I'm still a part of the Awami League. I'm contesting and the party doesn't have any issues.
Tensions are escalating here in the city's capital, just hours before the start of a 2-day strike designed to boycott the elections. A train was set on fire here, killing 4 people. Authorities say the incident was designed to intimidate voters ahead of the election, but have stopped short of naming those responsible.
Violent protests have also intensified, with almost 10,000 opposition activists arrested since late October, and some politicians going missing. But the ruling party believes the elections are free and fair.
There are no restrictions to participate in elections. There is no need to boycott or withdraw.
Despite the assurances, there are no prizes for guessing the winner of this contest. Meghna Bali, ABC News, Dhaka.
The Queensland Premier has conceded the massive recovery from the southeast Queensland storms may take years. Almost all power has been restored to homes in the Gold Coast region, with any remaining residents expected to be back on the grid tonight.
Juice Walton has lived in the scenic rim for 25 years. He spent his birthday picking up the pieces of his demolished home.
All of this road basically been cleared just by us. So it's just been a nightmare.
He's now sleeping in a bus on his property after he was told power wouldn't be restored anytime soon.
They actually said to me this morning, there's no record of me being here. And I said to them, well, how come I've been paying power bills for 25 years?
With 99% of the power grid connected in southeast Queensland, crews are still working tirelessly on the ground to reconnect the last households. Authorities have warned the cleanup is far from over.
It's true, recovering from this disaster, particularly when it comes to those severely damaged and destroyed households, that's going to take years.
Many residents in the southeast feel they've been left in the dark.
It's almost a little bit like a nightmare, I guess.
Alex Williams and his family have been without power since Christmas night. They were forced to move out of their rented Upper Coomera home.
I can't live here. There's no running water, there's no power still. Essentially, the house is sort of unlivable.
From tomorrow afternoon, 2 forms of financial assistance will be made available to residents. The first is a one-off payment to support those who've suffered injury or damage to their homes, while a disaster recovery allowance will help those who have been unable to work.
Some people we know have found it difficult to get to their work because of road damage or debris.
But many say without power and internet, they haven't been able to access support.
My wife's been told about them, but we've got no internet, we've got nothing.
A grim outlook as the cleanup continues. Jay Bowman, ABC News, Upper Coomera.
If you've spent your Sunday hitting the shops, you probably haven't given much thought to a time when that wasn't possible. But weekend trading in Australia is largely thanks to a hardware store owner who went to jail so that he could open up. Frank Penhalirak is now in his 80s and is preparing to sell his Melbourne store as several states continue to resist longer opening hours.
What time do you start this morning?
7 o'clock. This man and this shop are etched in Australian history.
I'm not a person for backing down. I have a mind of my own.
In the 1980s, Frank Penhalirak opened his hardware store on weekends, racking up huge fines by breaking laws that restricted trading hours.
No, I won't pay a cent. Under arrest, Mr. Penhalirak. You come with no words.
Sent to one of the nation's toughest prisons, he spent nearly 3 weeks inside.
I've proved I can stand this place for 19 days. Next time I can take it for 19 weeks, 19 months, 19 years, or 190 years.
But it didn't take that long.
Any law which comes between you as a customer and me as a shopkeeper is an ass of a law.
A changing mood and other rebel traders joining the fight forced the Victorian government to open up trading hours.
Change the damn law and open it up for everyone.
Which spread to other states and territories.
There's no doubt that Frank in the retail industry is an absolute legend.
There might be 7 days in a week,
But around 1/3 of trading for discretionary items like clothing is done on the weekend. And Western Australia, South Australia and Queensland have more restrictive trading hours than other states.
Shopping is really Australia's favourite sport, so regulating trading hours in today's modern world does simply not make sense.
Now 82, Frank is preparing to sell his hardware store, reflecting on a fight that changed how we work and play.
I would like things to be different, but I wouldn't do anything different, Dan.
Daniel Ziffer, ABC News, Melbourne.
To sport now, and in basketball, the Canberra Capitals have had the perfect start to the year with a big win over the Southside Flyers in Melbourne last night. It takes the Caps to 3 wins in the last 4 games.
New year, same team, same long-range three-pointers. But starting 2024 with their first win away in 2 seasons has given the Caps the boost they deserve.
And the UC Capitals come into Melbourne and secure a big 10-point victory.
Strong defensive efforts kept the scoreboard at 0-0 for 8 minutes, till veteran Lauren Jackson opened the scoring for the Flyers. The quarter went the way of the home side, who snagged a 9-point run. Layups proved to be the key for the Caps going into the second quarter, as Alex Sharp showed they could manage their much taller opponents.
It was $1 million move, it was a 5-cent finish, but they end up with some points anyway.
The scoreline got closer with the end of each quarter, as the Caps went into half-time just 4 points behind. Cue Jade Melbourne, whose three-pointer at the beginning of the third quarter marked the start of the Caps' strong run home.
Gorgeous basketball from the Capitals.
Gemma Potter continued to build confidence after returning from an ACL injury, taking the match into her hands to give the Caps the lead in stylish fashion.
And another big hit for the Capitals.
Nicole Munger helped the travelling side along, who quickly jumped to a 10-point lead, finishing the game with a huge win, 75 points to 65.
We're happy to be grateful for every single win that we get. So, we'll celebrate everyone like it's a championship for sure.
It's the Caps' 3rd win in 4 games, giving fans and players a good reason to cheer. Anthea Moody, ABC News, Canberra.
For the first time in 17 years, Australia has a men's player in the world's top 10 after Alex de Minaur fought back from a set down to defeat Alexander Zverev at the United Cup. The 24-year-old will head to Melbourne Park hoping for a deep run at his home Grand Slam.
3 straight top 10 ranked opponents, 3 straight wins for the Demon.
And there it is. De Minaur does it for Australia.
The 24-year-old dropped the first set against Germany's world number 7, Alexander Zverev, but in trademark fashion, never lost hope.
He's lifted, he's asking the crowd to lift with him.
The win propels him into the top 10 ahead of next week's Australian Open. His best result, the 4th round.
It's what I worked so hard for. It's another milestone, but it doesn't finish there. Job's not done.
His United Cup coach and mentor, Leighton Hewitt, was the last Aussie man to hold a place inside the world's top 10 back in July 2006.
I see all the reasons why I'm not going to be a good player, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to improve, and I saw it in the back of my head and I used it as motivation.
In Brisbane, it was one-way traffic in the women's final.
Arena Rybakina putting on a clinic.
Arena Sabalenka had won 15 straight matches in Australia, including last year's Grand Slam title.
Well, Sabalenka had started walking to the chair. She'd given up on that point.
But it took her 9 games today to even get on the board.
Sabalenka breaks.
24-year-old Rybakina sought revenge for last year's Oz Open final loss in their head-to-head battle.
A masterclass. Elena Rybakina, the Brisbane International champion.
I really enjoy playing you, no matter the result. As I said, we always push each other, which is great, I think.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
The Socceroos have tuned up for the start of next week's Asian Cup with a 2-0 victory over Bahrain in Abu Dhabi. An own goal from a Craig Goodwin cross put Australia in the lead at half-time, and Goodwin provided again as he nodded a cross goal for Mitch Duke to score. The win is a confidence builder for Graham Arnold's side ahead of their Asian Cup opener against India on Saturday night. The high-pressure setting of a hospital ward can sometimes feel a million miles away from a concert hall, but a group of Australian medical professionals are bringing the two worlds together. Corpus Medicorum is a group of doctors, nurses and others from various hospitals who make music, raising money for medical research along the way.
Playing music has been a lifelong passion for Philip Antipa. Today he's in rehearsal for an upcoming orchestral gala in Melbourne. But Philip is not only a skilled musician. He's also the head of thoracic surgery at the Royal Melbourne Hospital and Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre. 20 years ago, the surgeon founded Corpus Medicorum, an orchestra made up of health workers.
We have nurses and physiotherapists and dentists and medical scientists and PhD students.
Corpus Medicorum is one of a handful of medical orchestras around the world and is helping health workers cope with the gruelling demands of their profession.
There's no capacity to think about, oh, I wonder how the hospital's going, or I wonder how that patient's going. It's actually this set-aside period of time where I'm just in the music.
It can be quite nerve-wracking to play a solo in a concert, but at least no one's going to die if you miss a note.
Sonia Baldock played music professionally before going back to university to study intensive care nursing. She not only plays with the orchestra, but sometimes takes her violin to work.
We know that physiologically it can bring your heart rate down, so anyone who's stressed, whether that be staff, patients, family members, we know that that sense of peace comes from dropping that heart rate down.
Corpus Medicorum performs regularly in Melbourne and at venues around the world. Their performances have raised more than $1 million for lung cancer research and other projects over the past 2 decades.
When we're all in the orchestra together, we might be a bunch of medical professionals, but we're experiencing this as a bunch of music lovers.
It's intoxicating, it's addictive, it's a really an incredible thing to be part of.
Healing hearts and saving lives. Sasha Payne, ABC News, Melbourne.
To the weather now, but first, it's hard not to be in awe of our beautiful National Botanic Gardens thanks to this incredible shot from Subramaniam Sukumar. While Naomi Bradfield has been adventuring around the region and captured this scene of the Murrumbidgee from Lanyon Homestead. It was another glorious morning in the capital today. It reached 28 degrees in Tuggeranong and at the airport, but there were a few scattered showers late this afternoon and there could be a few more to come tonight. A mostly fine day in our surrounding areas. Bega and Nowra both reached 28, Goulburn sitting pretty on 27, while Griffith tipped over to 31. Some patchy rain for the capitals today, but it got to 29 in Brisbane, Sydney 28 and 27 in Melbourne. That band of cloud heading east on this map is bringing showers and storms across South Australia and western parts of New South Wales, and soon heavy showers are going to start being felt in our region. A high pressure ridge will keep much of the country's southwest dry and settled, while that low pressure trough will keep things warm through the centre. Rain seems to be the common theme in the capitals across the east coast tomorrow. Brisbane getting to 30, Sydney 29 and Melbourne storms and 22. In our region, it'll be a very wet one. We could see up to 30 millimetres of rainfall. A thunderstorm is also on the cards later in the day. 27 degrees in Batemans Bay, lightning a chance in Yass and Wagga, reaching 27. Storms also affecting Cooma. In Canberra, lightning and thunder possible. It'll get to 24 degrees at the airport and in Tuggeranong. Sunrise will be at 8 minutes to 6 and sunset at 26 minutes past 8. Tomorrow should be the worst of all the wet weather coming our way, and it will continue through Tuesday, but it should head offshore towards the end of the week, clearing on Wednesday and Thursday before making a return next weekend. And that's the latest from the Canberra newsroom. I'm Jade Toomey. Thank you so much for your company. Yara, good night and enjoy the rest of your weekend.